Hello, welcome to Lost in Movies. I'm Alec Kerr, the film critic for the Conway Daily Sun, and this week I'm joined by...
I'm Jonathan Dubey, and I am not a film critic or any kind of critic for anywhere, except that I am very critical in my own life.
There you go.
So that translates well to what we're doing today.
There you go. So I believe this is the 15th movie in the ever-expanding Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yes, and I love that. A lot of people complain about the fact that that's happening. I love it. Yeah. I think it's great. I think it's this whole new thing that we got basically kind of like a soap opera experience in theaters. Yeah, I love it.
People love binge watching things on Netflix. This is the same thing, just at the movie theaters.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So, or at home on Blu-ray or DVD if you can't afford Blu-ray yet.
Yeah, there you go. So we're going to be talking about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, so check out the trailer.
Hope you're ready. It'll be here any minute. Is that a rifle?
You don't know what a rifle looks like?
It's just swords were your thing and guns were mine. But I guess we're both doing guns now. I just didn't know that.
Well, that's intense.
I see it within you. Fear, jealousy, betrayal. It is our duty to cleanse the universe of this weakness.
You know, they told me you people were conceited douchebags, but that isn't true at all.
Dude!
I'm using my wrong eye.
Dude, put your seatbelt on!
So we're saving the galaxy again?
Yep.
Awesome! We're really gonna be able to jack up our price if we're two-time galaxy savers. Yes!
Sometimes the thing you're searching for your whole life, it's right there by your side all along.
You're right.
All you do is yell at each other. You're not friends.
No, we're family. Except maybe her. After all these years, I've found you.
And who the hell are you?
I'm your dad, Peter.
So Guardians of the Galaxy, the first one, probably one of the best ones in the series so far, I'd say. The original.
Yeah, that's definitely.
It's probably top 5, I'd say.
Yes, without a doubt.
So definitely a tough act to follow.
Yes.
And I think we might differ a little bit because we were talking a little bit beforehand. I did really enjoy the film. I don't know if it's quite as good as the original because the original was much more focused. And this one is a lot more sprawling and unwieldy and kind of all over the place. But I kind of appreciate it for that reason because so many movies get so focused on plot and don't focus on the characters that this was, for me, more of a character-driven movie instead of a plot-driven movie. And so that appealed to me.
Okay. I can definitely see your point in that. I liked the first one so much.
Yeah.
And I rewatched the first one. And it had a great story, and it had great characters, moving from, point A to point B to point C. And you didn't always know where they were going, and you didn't always know what twists were going to happen. But you knew who the bad guys were, you knew who the good guys were, and you could follow it, and it was fun. And it took all of these characters that are orphans in their own right and built them together as a family.
Right.
And so this movie opens with that, they've deteriorated a little bit in their family unit, and they seem to be fighting more, which is, normal, and it works, to create that. But the movie just kind of doesn't have any sort of clear direction. And there's a lot of really slow moments in the movie where you just you're sort of left to wonder what's going on, except for the fact that if you're paying attention, you know exactly what's going on. You're just waiting for them to get there.
Yeah.
And I felt that I spent a lot of time in this movie just waiting for something to happen. Whereas in the first one, by the time I'm processing what just happened, something else even cooler is happening.
Yeah, and I get that. And I guess this isn't so like, okay, what's going to happen next in the plot? I think what is happening here is it's more the driving thrust of this is more the emotional interactions with the characters. And so you have Star-Lord, Peter Quill, he meets his father, and so he has to deal with what that means for him. And then you have Gamora and Nebula dealing with their sibling rivalry and trying to deal with that. And the fact that Rocket basically lost his best friend in the sense that, yes, he still has Baby Groot, but it's not the Groot that he knows and remembers, and they've lost their dynamic. And so he's feeling very lost and confused, and so he's kind of pushing everybody away. You have Yondu, who feels estranged from his group, the Ravagers, and so you have all these different emotional things going on. And so, yes, there is a plot where you have the Sovereign, which is a very generic and boring antagonist.
Oh, they were incredibly boring.
Which is something Marvel struggles with. There is another antagonist, which we'll get into in spoilers, which you're saying is, it's obvious that it's him, and you want people to catch up with them. The fact that, but I was okay with it.
Don't forget Taserface.
Taserface, which is hilarious.
If they make an action figure of Taserface,
there
it will
is
be a peg warmer.
I know you're not a huge fan of pop figures, but there is a pop figure Taserface.
Yeah, and there will be several pop figures of Taserface sitting on the shelves at the stores for a very long time.
I know, and when they're on sale for $3, I will purchase one.
Oh, there you go. Hey, I just added something to my Christmas list for you.
There you go. But so, yeah, you have all this struggle going on, and so I appreciate that aspect of it, but yeah, the antagonist isn't very good. When you do get the reveal of who the real antagonist is, even if it is kind of obvious, I was okay with it because he was one of the first actual strong antagonists in a Marvel film, because that's the thing Marvel films really struggle with, is having a good villain. And this villain is actually a strong villain, and you understand his motivations, and he's charismatic, he's charming, and it works.
I agree with you on a lot of that. But going back to the first one, which I'll probably keep doing,
Right.
One of the things that I really liked about it is it's an action movie that has a lot of comedy and is bright and colorful and a lot of fun. And then you find out at the end, oh my gosh, I care about these people. I want these people to succeed. I want these people to get along with each other because they've created a family.
Yeah.
And the second movie is just beating you over the head with it. They're a family. Hey, look, family. Hey, look, sibling rivalry. Hey, look, daddy issues. This is just, it's all about family. And, we don't need a plot. We'll have epic-looking space battles and fist fights and giant monsters that are practically meaningless and practically used as comic relief.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, at the same time, the movie is completely bonkers in a lot of ways, and the fact that we could have a $250 million movie that has this kind of stuff in it is kind of amazing, and that you can have a whole conversation about Peter Quill's father's penis and how big it is, and that's in a major blockbuster film.
Yeah, it is. But it's also a film that is showing all this stuff with baby Groot.
Yeah.
And I don't know anyone between the ages of 5 and 10 that do not want to see this movie. And so it's PG-13, and I'm very, very anti-censorship. But when you have a conversation about penises and penis size and whatnot in a movie,
Well, you know,
and you can do it in such a way that the parents are going to know what's going on and the younger kids are not going to know what they're talking about. This one, it really towed that line.
well, I understand that, but you know what? I watched Ghostbusters when I was a kid, and anything in this nothing in this is as bad or as anything in Ghostbusters.
That is true.
And so I feel like movies in the 80s that were kind of on that edge for kids or adults, like Ghostbusters, I feel like this is kind of in that vein. And, okay, so there was a penis joke. Like, kids...
Well, a penis joke is fine.
Yeah.
But they just kept it going and kept it going and kept... If it was a one-off joke, okay. But they're like, oh, this joke's going to be funny. Let's just keep telling this joke 6 times in a row or so, and it's like...
tell it 6 times in a row.
Well, like 2 or 3. Drax really kept it going longer.
Well, yeah,
than
and
was
that's part of
necessary.
the thing with Drax is that he is so... And I love that character because he's so literal-minded and so unable to get social cues that it makes sense that he would be like, keep pushing it, because he doesn't understand that there is a line that he is crossing. So of course he would keep pushing it when everyone's like, dude, stop. And he's just, because he doesn't get that what he's doing is wrong.
And he meets a character that is kind of like his psychological opposite.
Right.
And the communication and the conversations the two of them have are downright adorable.
Oh, yeah. Because she's equally literal-minded, but she's completely innocent. And so she takes everything he says at face value.
Right.
Which is hilarious.
What I'm really hoping for with this movie being a direct sequel, being a part 2, but in other ways being a part 15 of a larger series, I'm hoping that this is kind of a one-off in a way. That it's like, okay, you can do this for a movie, but I think that we're treading danger of having Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 be about adorable characters and fart jokes and not so much about a story.
I don't
and
think that's
I really hope they don't go in that direction.
I don't think that's the case at all.
I'm hoping it comes back up to more of an adventure film.
I mean, I still think this was an adventure film. I just think... I mean... It's not on the level of, say, Empire Strikes Back. I'm not implying that. But this is going to be... James Gunn is going to be the first filmmaker to actually do a trilogy within the Marvel universe. Because there's been different directors for all the other ones. There were 2 Iron Man movies done by Favreau. There were,
the third one was somebody else.
Yeah, Whedon got 2 Avengers films. So he's going to be the first person to have his own vision for a story for 3 films. And so I think this was kind of that down chapter, the chapter in the middle, that's about character building. It gets a little bit darker in certain places, and it's less fun in that regard, but I feel like the characters were enriched. I feel like they were deepened. I do understand Star-Lord better. I understand the dynamic between Nebula and Gamora more. There are reveals about what happened in their childhood that deepen their connection and their understanding. And so I just enjoyed having moments with these characters. Yeah, I mean, I did feel the length in certain places, but I just liked actually having characters interact in, because so often, like big blockbuster movies, you don't get character interaction at all. And maybe there was too much character interaction in this and not enough action. But I was just happy to be spending time with these characters.
The Nebula and Gamora story was my favorite of all of these, because this is what this movie really was to me. It was several little stories about pairs of characters, dialogues, just kind of loosely fit together.
Yeah.
Because you had, your Drax and Mantis, you had your Gamora and Nebula, you had your Rocket
And
and
Yondu.
Yondu.
Yeah.
You had your Star-Lord and his pop and his daddy issues. So there was not a whole lot of real team interaction. There was each family member going on their own little separate mini quest and then kind of coming back together at the end with a ham-fisted attempt at a climax.
And I didn't think it as being ham-fisted because what drew them together at the end was their connection as a unit, as a family. And so when they realized that Star-Lord, Peter, is in danger, they're like, okay, well, we have to go rescue him. So that's the thing that's pulling them together. And the fact that, and we'll kind of have to get into spoilers a little bit, the fact that, I guess we have to get into spoilers.
Absolutely.
So, all right.
I'm for spoilers.
Okay, so we're going to get into spoiler territory. If you don't want to know what happens here, you gotta shut off and
we'll change the channel to find a show with better looking people on it.
Okay. Well, okay. Let's before we get into spoilers, I would say on a level of like see it, matinee, skip it, rent it, I'd say see it. I really did enjoy it. I don't think it's quite as good as the original, but I do think it is one of the better Marvel films, and I do recommend it. So
okay, I would say if you get the opportunity to see it on the big screen, absolutely. I mean, it's beautiful, it's colorful, it's an adventure, it's fun to watch. The sound quality is great, the special effects are great. Seeing it, 30 feet or more wide, yeah. Absolutely go for it. And, if it wasn't for the fact that I'm collecting all of these Marvels on Blu-ray, I don't think I would buy this one on its own. But since I am collecting them, I probably will because, unfortunately, I'm like that. But, yeah.
All right. So if you don't want spoilers, you got our recommendations now. All right.
There
Ego. Kurt Russell, Star-Lord's father, is a giant planet. And he's an entity that is able to materialize space and matter. And so he's made a whole planet, and he's also made a human form of himself. And he's gone around the universe impregnating women, looking for a son.
Sort of like the real Kurt Russell.
Yeah.
No, that's not true. Kurt Russell's a family
looking
man.
for a son, a daughter, who shares his inner light so that he can basically destroy the universe. Because he feels alone in the universe, and so if he makes everybody part of him, then he'll feel connected to the universe.
Right. And the big problem that I had was that it was so obvious that he was the villain, and we were just waiting. I found myself just waiting to get to it. And the reason why it was obvious was because of a bad storytelling issue.
Yeah.
There was no other clear villain. It could have easily been solved by having some bounty hunter that was actually a existing Marvel character from one of the many cosmic comics after them, and you would have thought, oh, this is going to be the big villain, well, and then they do a bait and switch.
You kind of get that with the Sovereign, because they are being pursued by the Sovereign. Again, they're not very interesting.
They're being pursued by solid gold comedians.
Yeah.
They were just there to... I didn't even understand what they were about. Except
I don't know. He is kind of, you don't really trust him when you first meet him. I wasn't sure if he was going to wind up being the big bad of the movie. And maybe it's just because at this point, I've gotten so used to the villains in Marvel movies not being very good. I was like, okay, there's Sovereign. They're terrible. They're not very good villains, just like the villain in Guardians of the Galaxy wasn't very good. I guess this is what I got to deal with. So I wasn't really even thinking, like, there's got to be a better villain, because Marvel has been letting us down so much with villains.
I kind of liked the villain in the first one. I mean, he was no Red Skull.
No, he was okay, but he was just underutilized. He was just like, okay, I'm the bad guy and I want to destroy things.
But at the same time, in the first movie, the true villain of the first movie was the egos of the main
Right.
characters, which is why it's interesting that the second movie has a villain actually called Ego.
Right.
All of these characters feel like they're the best and they can only rely on themselves and nobody else is anything and nobody else is any good. And so the first movie was all about them getting over that and saying, I need these people in my life.
Right.
I want people and trees and raccoons in my
Right.
life.
So when we do finally get this confrontation against Ego, and
And
it
the
does,
green people.
and it does unite everybody. The fact that it is Peter's father that's the villain, and it's basically his surrogate family coming to save him, I feel like that does add something to that climax.
It does. It does. And that was another thing that was kind of a plot hole, I felt. It's like they all come to rescue Peter, and most of them are kind of getting in his way while he's rescuing himself. And his father, who is millions, if not billions of years old and has all this power, has been training his son Peter to use this power for about 35 minutes. And then Peter's able to use the power against him. And that was, I thought that was kind of a bit of a plot hole there.
I don't know if it's a plot hole as just convenient.
I guess.
And hey, Yondu gives him the key to using his power. So let's,
That's true,
You
yeah.
do have to take a leap. Obviously, you have to take a leap in this. And so, but then you have this confrontation, this breakdown where you have, Star-Lord could actually be a powerful entity. Like, he's not just a human. Like, he always just thought he was a human. He could have limitless power, basically. Or he can just wind up being a human if he winds up killing his father. And so you have that struggle there. Like, do I let this father live, even though he has this terrible plan? But then I could use my powers for good. And then you have that sort of struggle there.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, the characterization of a lot of it was good, but the overarching plot.
Yeah, and I guess I'm not really...
What's going on and why.
I guess I'm not really bothered by plot dynamics much anymore. As long as characters are interesting, if dialogue is interesting, if I can get emotionally hooked into a movie, I really don't care that much about a plot, unless it's like incomprehensible and just an absolute mess. Like, if a plot is just there basically to string along scenes and the scenes work and the dynamics work, I kind of just go with it.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
That's just where I'm at. Like, unless a plot is an absolute mess, like, I understand that some films just use the plot to get us to one scene to another scene to another scene. Was Guardians better because it had a stronger plot and a more focused plot? Yes, absolutely. But I just enjoyed having these scenes and having some stuff that's like absolutely insane in this movie.
Cameos.
But like, there's a scene where they're warping through time, or warping through space,
Yep.
and they're doing too many warps, and their faces are getting all distorted. The fact that something like that has been thrown into this movie is fantastic.
It was nice. That was cool. That was fun. And I think that they did it with the right characters.
Yeah.
Because I mean, well, they did it with Rocket, who's computer animated to begin with,
Right.
and with Michael Rooker, who's got such a distinctive, his face in and of itself is a caricature,
Right.
of him. So that was fun.
And there's the Sovereign, and the thing that about Sovereign that almost makes it okay that they're in this film is that it's revealed that they're basically all gamers. And that they have their spaceships are done by drone, basically, and it's like they're in an arcade, like an 80s arcade. And you have people like hover around them like you would in arcades. And
Yes, and the Atari MIDI sound effects.
Yes.
That was cool, but
that was funny.
But at the same time, that gave us more questions than answers. Like, how do they live their regular lives? What's that? Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. You have to remember that James Gunn did get his start in Troma, and there are moments in this.
True.
There are moments in this where this feels like kind of a PG-13 Troma film, just in the absurdity of ideas and the fact that they're just throwing things at the wall and seeing if it sticks, and maybe it doesn't work, but I appreciate the fact that this is a movie that's willing to just do outlandish ideas and get away with it, because at this point, Marvel and Disney, they know these movies print money for them, so it's like, you know what? Go do whatever you want.
The first movie had this big climactic sequence, which turned into a dance-off, which was an incredibly risky thing to do. It was either going to work or it wasn't, and nobody knew until probably it came together in the editing room. And Chris Pratt is brilliant, and it ended up working really well. And I almost feel like that gave James Gunn an excuse to do almost whatever he wanted, and to practically make his brother the de facto star of the movie. Yeah, because he just kept showing up over and over again.
I liked his character.
I liked him too, and in a way, he was kind of the heart of the movie, except, well, we didn't really care that much about him.
Yeah, I wouldn't say he's the heart of the film, but the dynamic...
He was the redemption.
He was the redemption, and I appreciated that, because you have Yondu, he is betrayed by the Ravagers, and then you have this one character who is like, I never wanted to lead a mutiny against you, you were my captain,
Yeah.
and I will be there for you. You were saying off camera that you're not a huge fan of Groot.
I like the idea of Groot, and I just thought that there was a little bit too much screen time given to Baby Groot, who is a one-note character. It was just the same joke over and over again. And in the first movie, Groot showed us depth and emotion.
Yeah.
And so that was incredible. And in the second one, it's like, okay, Groot's just a joke now. And he's cute. Okay.
Yeah.
And then what they did with him at the end makes me afraid for the third one. I hope they skip that stage.
I think they are absolutely skipping that stage, because I've heard he's going to be like an adult, and he's actually probably maybe even more advanced than he was in the first one, because I think James Gunn has been on the record, Vin Diesel's been on the record, that we didn't see Groot fully formed, and that he was basically just out of college age Groot in Guardians of the Galaxy, so that we could actually potentially see an even wiser, older, fully developed Groot in the future, which could be interesting.
Right.
I did like Baby Groot. The opening is fantastic, just because you have Baby Groot dancing in the foreground, where you have all this chaos happening in the background. And I read a quote from James Gunn that said that that's basically a metaphor for the entire film, because you think it's this big adventure film, but it's really about what's happening in the foreground with the characters rather than the big explosions in the background.
Yeah, that's true. It was a movie about individuals.
Yeah, and that is where he's at. He finds that to be more interesting than a bunch of explosions.
Now, if we go back to Yondu, since we're on the spoiler section of this.
Yeah, we're almost out of time. We're done.
Yondu was betrayed by his group, but we find out that Yondu actually betrayed his original group of Ravagers, which are the original Guardians of the Galaxy from the first comic book from 1990, which doesn't have any of the characters we know, with the exception of Yondu.
Because the Guardians of the Galaxy that we saw, the first film and this film, was a reboot from what, 2005, 2006, something like that?
Exactly. It wasn't even a 10-year-old property.
Right.
When they started doing it.
Right.
Which is why they had a license to do so much with it and almost anything. But we get these amazing cameos by Michelle Yeoh and Sylvester Stallone,
Ving
Rhames, and unfortunately Miley Cyrus. And
whatever.
Miley Cyrus are members of the original Guardians of the Galaxy team, which was pretty cool.
To be fair, Miley Cyrus is just a voice and she has one line.
That's true. Yep. And the original Guardians of the Galaxy team was created with characters that were created in the 1960s and 1970s, all brought in to this comic book in the 1990s, to keep this, because they had this galactic thing going on and they wanted to keep that going.
And for fans who know the original Yondu, he does have his red fin in this, and it
Yep.
looks fantastic.
It does. It's pretty cool.
And Yondu, Michael Rooker, probably has the single funniest line in the movie.
Oh yeah.
I don't want to spoil it.
No,
But
no.
it's going to be the line that everybody quotes. I've already started seeing T-shirts with it. It is.
I've been saying it in my own life to people who have not seen the movie, and they
It
look
is
at me funny.
fantastic. So next week, I have a episode with the new Netflix series Girl Boss. So it's not really lost in movies, but come back next week and get lost in movies again.